Welcome back, guys. Today we have I got a good episode for you guys. As you can see, we have the Welch's passion fruit lemonade. If you know, Don Lemon has been getting all the attention, and to the rescue comes, you're right, Tiffany Welch's. And today we have I think, probably a good combination here, right? A Welch and a lemon is going to get together and give us all of the good tasting stuff we want, right? And that's what we're going to deal with. Because after the Don Lemon's filming, live streaming, This Is Journalism act, obviously people were going to come to his defense, because poor Don Lemons, he was just in that church. He wasn't protesting. He was just being a journalist. And here comes other people, particularly Jennifer Welch here, a liberal person coming to defend. And by the way, if you haven't seen the clip, this is the woman that will say that when Democrats get into power, it's time to arrest these people. But we're going to talk, this video is going to deal with what happened, right? And I'm going to key in on a few things, particularly of what she said about the people of the church that Don Lemon had to, was live streaming and asked the pastor questions. And we're going to hear some of the stuff that Jennifer Welch is going to do. So bear with me as we go through this video here and there. Let's start out with the first thing.
And so this church, it is friendly, is ICE friendly, is my understanding.
That's the reporting. So according to the group, and I have not been able to confirm this again because this wasn't my movement. I am chronicling what happened. They said that they found evidence that someone who is a pastor or registered as a pastor there is also an ICE agent or works in some capacity with ICE. And they said they had information about that. And they think that if that is the case, why are you a pastor at a church if you were working as an ICE agent? And so that's what their skirmish was about. That's what they went in to protest. And that's what I went in just to report on.
Now, according to him, right, because I'm stamping here where we're going to be at. But according to him, he said he went, but he didn't verify the information, right? Look at this top journalist, right? He goes with the people, the protesting, to go, and they're saying, "Oh, we have good evidence, good record that one of the pastors there is an ICE agent and works for ICE." And he says later, a little bit further on, he says, "But I didn't verify this information, but I went in there just to document, to chronicle, right? To chronicle as a thing." Now, Jennifer Welch, you can hear how he says, right, that they went to this church saying that they're ICE friendly. Most churches, if not all churches, Catholic, no matter what denomination, they tend to be in favor of law enforcement, because they understand that within the realm of the government that God established, most Christians would say that most governments are ordained. They look to Romans 13, right, where it says that the government does not bear the sword in vain. Throughout the Bible, you also have God establishing kings and stuff like that. This is not an absurd thing for Christians to favor government, because they believe that the government is given its authority from the Creator and that they bear it. Now, I'm not saying that every government is God given in the sense like that God wants this type of model, right? I would say that dictatorship, tyrannical stuff like that, I don't think would be that. That happens when you do take what God, the ordained structure of how God wants humanity to govern themselves, and man corrupts it and man turns it around and stuff like that. So there are types of governments where I would say, yeah, God gives the structure of man to be over one another, but not in this sense. She says they're ICE friendly. And I don't want to get tied into this, because I could make another video about this, but there's nothing controversial, at least for a Christian, to hold an office of some type of law enforcement and say that it is contradictory to being a Christian. Because again, as a Christian, if you're, one of the things is that you love justice, you love righteousness, you want your nation to excel, and you want to protect the nation and the people within it. And to love your neighbor is to protect the nation that you are. And so, and they just want to automatically assume, well, a Christian loves their neighbor, cares for the foreigners. I bet money they don't even know where they get that from. Isaiah 52, 53, 54, Isaiah 50. But they can't quote that. But they'll just like, oh, but Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. Right. And to love your neighbor as yourself right? It means that you have to also be in the welfare of other people in that nation. Christians are part of a nation, much like Christians are part of the kingdom and they look out for other Christians and the well-being of other Christians. Christians are also citizens of an actual nation, right? And so if Christians want to serve in law enforcement, whether it's ICE, something like that, because they believe that it upholds justice and righteousness and the well-being of others, there's nothing contradictory about that. Plenty throughout the centuries, Christians have served in government, in law enforcement, in the military, because they believe that this is a way, this is a part of the justice of righteousness that flows out of the divine being of God. And then we see it throughout scripture. So for them to say, oh, how can you be a pastor and work for ICE? Clearly, again, and we'll see it, that you don't understand Christianity as itself. All right. So let's go ahead and jump, because I got things, places here. Here goes another one.
Recruiting, but not helping, not comforting.
By the way, she's talking about how she grew up in this type of Christianity, and that she uses the word recruit, right? That Christians recruit, instead of saying Christians are out there trying to have converts, because Islam does the same thing, to proselytize. Religions usually are going to have converts because they're convinced, they are trying to persuade people that this is the way. It's not recruitment. We're not in the military. All right.
Not providing, like, these people are hurting. These people that ICE are targeting are suffering. They're marginalized. And I thought you did an excellent job with the pastor saying, don't you think Jesus would want to talk to these people and help these people?
Now, you see this comment right there. You cannot be a Christian and work for ICE. Stupid low IQ people who don't really understand the Bible, don't understand Christianity as a whole. They don't understand Christianity, right? Because these are the same people that be like, oh, Christians shouldn't hold office. Christians just need to keep their stuff in their house, right? That they get confused when Christians are outwardly saying things that are Christian. They're like, what? Wait, what? No, Christian. These are the same people. That's a stupid comment down there to say you cannot be a Christian and work for ICE. Oh, you cannot be a Christian and work for the police. Oh, you cannot be a Christian and work for the governor's office. You cannot work where? Because, corruption and all this. You see, these are the same people. But the reason why Christians work in these places is because they understand the stability of a nation is given by God. To care for other people is a Christian thing. To the welfare of the nation is a Christian thing. To want righteousness, to punish evildoers is a Christian thing. There's nothing wrong with people saying that, right? And here she goes, and she's saying, oh, and remember, Dawn actually says, Dawn says to the pastor, don't you think Jesus would love this? They love to invoke Jesus, but the Jesus that they like to invoke is a hippie Jesus. This isn't the one that you really look in the scriptures, right? Again, based upon how they view Christianity, this is what they do.
Yeah. Well, and also remember, as someone who wrote the book and was on your show wrote a book about God. Jesus turned the tables over in the temple, right? He flipped the tables because he was tired of them, not doing what they're supposed to do in his Father's house and not living up to the tenets of Christianity.
Again, he's an idiot. He's just the biggest idiot, right? And here's what I say, because these people, they think that Jesus is just a human, right? He's just a good little person to listen to. If you press them on it and ask them if Jesus was God, they start going like, well, we don't know, right? Automatically, you failed the test. You just failed the Christian test. You failed one of probably the major tenets of Christianity, which is that Jesus is God. But he says, well, Jesus got mad, went to the temple because they weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. But what were they supposed to be doing, Don? What were they doing? They were supposed to have that temple for sacrificing unto the Lord, bringing their offerings, right? Giving remembrance to the Lord. All of this, they had turned the temple, and they started selling, particularly in the outer court. They were selling, they were ripping people off, they were making things expensive, particularly like the offerings, right? Because there was different offerings that you can give depending on how poor or how rich you were. Okay, but Jesus got mad because as God Himself, He knew that the temple was a sacred thing. This is how God would communicate before with them. The presence of the Lord when David builds Solomon builds the temple, and much more like what happened with the tabernacle with Moses. the presence of the Lord was in the temple. So Don doesn't even know this. He's just thinking, he's probably like, well, Jesus got mad because, this is sacred stuff. Doesn't know anything historically all over the place. And by the way, here's the reason why I'll show you why Don, you can't trust Don with Christianity, period, right? Because here's another thing. This is his Christmas special, right? Where he wants to deal with it, right? This is Don wanting to deal with his Christianity. And this is why I say, don't fall for Don Lemons and his fake Christianity. Don't do it. All right. Let's listen to Don Lemon's Christianity.
What I will say is that I like to look at the Bible and scripture like a workbook in school, right? That teaches it, because I think it's a book of obviously parables and mythology and it's lessons, I believe, that on how you should live your life. And sometimes people need references, they need a guide, but I don't believe that it can be a reference and a guide. I don't believe that it's laws that you must live that way. And I do believe fundamentally.
Exactly. You see that? Boom. Automatically just goes bonkers, right? It's just, it's a cookie cutter. It's a cookie 4chan. I can pick and choose what parts of the Bible I like. I like the Sermon on the Mount. I like the lessons of the parable. Everything else, I don't give a crap. The 10 Commandments, I don't give a crap. The Mosaic Law, I don't give a crap. The way that apparently God structures humanity to live upon, I don't give a crap about that. I like the nice stories. I like the blessed are the peacemakers, blessed are the humble and the meek. I love that stuff. Love your neighbor as yourself. That stuff. I like that stuff, right? He doesn't care about the whole. He doesn't take it as the whole. He doesn't believe that the Bible is God inspired, that is actually the living. He doesn't care. This is why you cannot accept his version of Christianity, because it's an open leftist Christianity. It's not an orthodox centuries of believing the way that most Christians have throughout the centuries, right? His version is, I like to circle this one and this one and this one. Don, that's only like less than 1% of the whole book. I don't care about the rest of the book. He said he didn't care about the laws. And that's the reason why you cannot take this man seriously when it comes to Christianity. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. All right. He's saying that, and this is why that's why Walt and her can't fathom why a person would want to work for ICE or law enforcement, because they don't think that the 10 Commandments and anything else, that the way that God claims that a person ought to live, right? Because you get it in the New Testament. Paul even says it, that there are ways that we ought to be. All the apostles, from the teaching of Jesus Christ, tell you exactly certain things that you should aim towards and abstain. But according to him, nah, I'm good, right? I am good about that. So let's go ahead and do another one, right? Let's go ahead and do another one.
Evangelical churches, that to the nut cutting of what I think this is about. So that is one of those white evangelical churches that turn out to vote for Donald Trump, 80+% of that sect of Christianity. These are the don't tread on me folks. These are the people who feel like America is for Americans and American only. These are white nationalists.
Boom. Right? Boom. That's all you needed. White nationalists. These are, by the way, she says these type of churches. So I'm assuming she thinks that all Southern Baptist churches, because this was part of the Southern Baptist churches, she assumes that all Southern Baptist churches have to be white nationalists, even though there's Black and Hispanic churches inside the Southern Baptist Convention. If y'all know about the Southern Baptist Convention, it's probably the largest of all the largest Protestant Christian denomination, right? But according to her, Jennifer, this church is associated with racism. All of these white people that were in there, right? Because they can never wrap their mind around that the church most of the time reflects the demographics of that church, right? So you could have a church that has only Blacks, only Hispanics, only whites, depending on where the church is located. If you grew up down south in Miami, most of your churches are going to be only Hispanic. What is she going to say about those churches? You might see one white person, you might see one black person, but you really see the predominant thing when you see it would be black people. I mean, Hispanic people, sorry. But if you go to Atlanta, you probably go to a black church, like a Shiloh Baptist church, and there'll be only blacks. But she will never claim that in itself, that black church is completely racist. No, it has to be this denomination, the Southern Baptist, because she claims that they are based upon the Ku Klux Klan, which is, again, another false accusation, because she does not want to do the actual background. She says in the beginning about, oh, I grew up around here. Did she grow up Baptist? Because to me, it sounds like she could have grown up Lutheran, Episcopalian. If you know anything about these denominations, even the Methodists, the Wesleyans, they've become very liberal. The Baptists have particularly stayed kind of strong. The Pentecostals have kind of stayed pretty strong to be conservative. I think she might be or must have grown on a Episcopalian, Lutheran, and Methodist. If she didn't, well, it is what it is. But when it comes to Southern Baptists, she's saying that they are bred into being white nationalists because it's their background. When you look at Southern Baptist history, that's not even remotely true. Not even remotely true. It just happened is that Don Lemon walked in with a bunch of black people and a bunch of white liberals, and then saw that, and they probably see, oh my God, I only see white people, right? Because they can never take into account in their heads that the church sometimes reflects the demographics around them. Not every church is gonna have all type of people in it. If you go to China, most of the underground churches are Asian. They're Asian. So what are you gonna say about that? Well, churches oftentimes reflect the demographics around them. This is nothing racist. This is nothing about it. This is just Jennifer Welch making accusations, because this game is very easy to play, guys. The race card is so easy to play all the time. So easy to play. Let's go ahead and hit one of these time frames to see what else, because there's a lot of stupid stuff she says in here. I think this is where she lost Dawn, but she keeps going with the racist thing.
That style of church is what average, everyday people that are of their own personal private faith, that kind of evangelical church where they're all about recruiting and they're all about, we just need to know Jesus personally and not about helping people. They don't think they should be confronted. Okay, Dawn, are you there?
So these people, everyday normal Americans, these white people that go to Southern Baptist Church, they're just straight up racist. They're just white nationalists. They don't want to be confronted with their Christianity. Here's the truth. These people don't want to be confronted with their bullshit. They don't want to be confronted with their bullshit. They don't want to be confronted with actual Christianity. They don't want to be actually taken to task about what the Bible actually says. They don't want to do anything like that. They want what Don Lemon says is his version of Christianity, which is I pick and choose, and the things that I don't like, I'm going to throw it away and throw it in the bin, right? That's the type of Christianity that Don Lemons, that Jennifer Welch, that's the type of Christianity they want, right? They don't want to hear the actual text about certain things that you don't sustain, certain things, how you should live your life. They don't give a shit about that. They just want their version of Christianity. And when you have Christians who have been practicing what I would say is centuries of the same Orthodox Christianity, right, from the first century church on to now, and they stand upon these credos and this historical Christianity, these people like this, they're like, that's weird, that's wrong. The people that have never studied Christianity in their life is going to tell the people that actually studied the historical Christianity, understand the Christianity, understand the credos about this religion. They're going to tell us, oh, we're the ones that don't really get it. We don't get it. Right? Because like I said, notice how they always want, especially with the ICE thing, the immigration thing. But Jesus said to love your neighbor, to reach out to all of them. I agree. Isaiah even says it about being a foreigner in the land and being good to them. But within that same context, you also understand that they wanted, right? A lot of times the foreigner actually ends up being proselyte. They actually convert to Judaism. They become that because they're living inside the nation. A lot of times in the Old Testament, God tells them not to worship the gods of those foreigners, because he knows what it's going to lead into. But according to them, when and by the way, this is why Israel falls and Israel and Judah fall, due to the fact that they picked up the tendencies. They picked up the tendencies of those foreigners, and they allowed themselves to be seduced, and thus the kingdom of Israel and Judah fall. And this is why God tells them to do certain things. According to them, is there was nothing wrong with what the Israelites were doing, or the Judeans were doing, and that the fall of Israel was actually a good thing, even though God told them not to follow those things. Because Jennifer Welch, Don Lemons, these individuals, they know more about Christianity. They don't. They don't care. They just want to pick and choose what part of the Bible they like to hear, and then accuse everybody else of following a certain thing, that they're wrong, that they're racist, that they're nationalist. According to them, I would be a nationalist too if I understood the core tenets of Christianity, and I told them that what they're practicing is wrong. They would call me a white nationalist. They'll be like, "Oh, you're Hispanic, but you're being brainwashed by..." No, bro. Here's this. You've been brainwashed by you've been brainwashed by idiots. You've been brainwashed by idiots. You're just sucking on that liberal stuff. And she says more and stuff like that. But you know what? This guy doubles down. Don Lemon just wants to double down, doesn't want to take responsibility for his crap. We're going to talk more about the whole thing because this is interesting, right? But ladies and gentlemen, this is what we got today, right here. This. Welch's passion fruit lemonade. She came to his aid because she wanted it, right? She wanted to come and defend Don Lemons. Guys, let me know what you think about this whole entire thing. Let me know what you think about Jennifer Welch and Don Lemons and what they think about what about their Christianity, right? They're suspect, bro. It's not a real Christianity. It's just made up liberal hippie stuff that they want to do. They just want to feel good about it. They don't want to. They're not willing. They said that that the pastor wasn't willing to talk to anybody. These people aren't willing to actually talk. They just want to label, right? But guys, let me know what you think about the whole video, the whole Don Lemon situation. Please like and subscribe. Really would appreciate it, guys. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks.